like to keep an old pair of trousers in the boot.
Smartermotoring.com, from Alliance and Leicester.
This week on Pulling Power, virtual racing versus the real thing. Jenson Button gives two gamers a reality check. Monkey bikes, cheap, cheerful and the hippest thing on two wheels. And at just £6,000, could this be the best value new car in the UK?
Birmingham, England, the spiritual home of the traditional Balti. Good, honest, basic, affordable stuff. Now, if only there was a motoring equivalent offering the same sort of value for money. You know, maybe, just maybe, there is. The bottom-of-the-range Kia Rio, and I emphasise the base model, is the ultimate in bargain basement family motoring. It sells for £6,000, and it's a steal. You're really getting a small to medium-sized estate car, not a hatchback, an estate car that's priced, well, it's not even priced like a Super Mini. It's priced below a Super Mini. So it's perfect, A, for a person who's trying to get their foot on the new car ladder for the first time, and B, the sort of families that need a good, safe, reliable, high-quality car, but just can't afford those sort of 10s and 12 grand. If you want a to B personal mobility machine that operates 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, unlike public transport, 40 miles per gallon, it's not exciting to drive, it's anything but. But you know, there's a lovely feeling about climbing behind the wheel of a brand new car, particularly if you've never had one before. It could perhaps be the only brand new family car you'll ever be able to afford. And you know, I've got to say, it's miles better than I thought it would be. I'm pleasantly surprised. Well, being such a young company, you know, Kia doesn't really have an identity of its own. So its design philosophy is to, well, basically borrow design cues from everybody else. That's absolutely true. I've been out to the design studio. They borrow all the best bits of other cars. At the rear here, we're looking at something, what does that remind me of? I don't know, Skoda Fabia. Around here, it's the Toyota Corolla, touch of Honda Civics, Ford Focus. And no, I'm not going crazy when I say this line here at the rear reminds me very much of that Alfa, that beautiful Alfa Sport Wagon. Or in the case of this car, the Kia Econo Wagon. It's my belief that cars like this might almost have a sort of inverted snobbery about them, you know. A bit like people who in the recent past have bought Skodas, for example. They were smart enough to see they were getting Volkswagens for the price of Skodas. It's almost the same with these things, you know, because you could be driving around going, look at me, I'm so clever. I've spent £6,000 on a car that really should be costing nearer 10 or 12. And it's a proper load lugger with room for the ingredients of all several million Baltis. Car comes with a 3-year warranty and roadside assistance, and when you sell it for a couple of grand after 36 months, it will have cost you only 26 quid a week to own. Now, I've got to give you some bad news. For $5,995, you don't get a lot on board. You won't even have a radio, but hey, forget the frills. Buying this car is a bit like going into the Balti and having a Balti and nothing else. Once you start ordering all the extras, that's when it gets expensive. Keep to the basics. When I keep banging on about these sub £6,000 versions of the Kia Rio, I'm not talking about some silly little 800cc buzz box or some city runaround or some tiny Super Mini. I'm talking about a full-blown 5-seater family car with plenty of luggage space, just like one of those, the Ford Focus. But the difference is you can buy 2 of these Rios for the price of 1 of these.
Well, new car buyers with much deeper pockets may want to check out this new sports estate from MG Rover. Our road testers have been driving the 190 bhp ZTT, and in our opinion, this is one of the best handling, best value load luggers on the market. For around 21.5 grand, you get a spacious, well-spec'd family hold-all that'll swallow enough luggage for a fortnight at the seaside. But with a rasping 24-valve, 2.5 litre V6 under the bonnet, you also get to let your hair down. At 0 to 60 in around 8 seconds is good, but what really impressed us about this car is the handling. It's nothing short of brilliant. Whilst former Rover owners, and now rivals, BMW might have felt their rear-wheel drive cars were untouchable, this front-wheel drive MG allows you to really exploit that performance while still feeling safe and assured. Downsides? Well, at this level of the market, many will still prefer a Munich-badged car to something homegrown, but we say that they'll be missing out on a gem. OK, so Longbridge may have some way to go in the image stakes, but this car should give its rival a real fright.
We interrupt this programme to bring you a special report. There's a worrying pastime that's sweeping across the nation, leading many people to miss work, school, and even sleep.
I used to go out and have lots of mates, but now I just stay in my room.
Well, I only tried it once, and then I was hooked.
Amazingly, this product is available on every high street and is completely legal. It's computer driving games. This report from our special correspondent, James Allen.
Thanks, Michelle. Well, if you thought driving games were mere child's play, you'd be wrong, because nowadays it's big business.
And that's a £17.7 billion business. Sony now makes more out of PlayStations than they do from music, movies or hi-fis. And for car manufacturers too, the game market is becoming increasingly important.
When we first started to do it, it was a little bit of a hard sell in terms of getting people to want to have their cars realistically portrayed in the game. And I guess there was concerns that, you know, if you let people perhaps do something crazy with their cars in a game, it might be detrimental to their image. To the point now where actually manufacturers come to us because they want to be a part of it.
Gran Turismo 3 is this season's hottest game, and it certainly looks the business. But how true to life is it?
Kazunori-san, who's the head of Polyphony Digital, the company that actually made the game for us, he actually drove himself every single one of the 150 cars in the game. They're just absolutely fanatical about motorsports and about being realistic in their portrayal of the cars in the game.
But here at Pulling Power, we're not convinced. So in the interests of science, we've brought along two self-confessed driving game addicts to Silverstone to give them an adrenaline rush they'll never forget.
Right then, lads, let's see how virtual reality compares with the real thing. We've got you a real racetrack, Silverstone. We've got you a real 3-litre Clio. And just to make it truly authentic, we've got you a real Grand Prix driver as well, Jenson Button.
All right, lads, who's going to be first? I will. Top man.
Young James hasn't even got a driving licence, and the only Clio he's ever been in is his mum's on the way to the shops.
It's got leather seats.
Looks like a bit too much reality for him.
When you're driving a Formula 1 car, you've got fear. You can push it to the limit, but you don't want to go over the limit because you could have an accident. Whereas in a game, if you crash, it doesn't hurt, which is great. But you don't get paid to do it.
Now that's one big drawback.
You all right, Dave?
Yeah, that was me.
Time for our next victim, volunteer. Raj takes the hot seat.
It's got a lot of oversteer, this car. That's because it's rear-wheel drive. The power goes through the rear wheel, so it's very difficult to drive with the rear.
Well, it It looks like reality is winning hands down. So let's get the champion's view. Will anyone ever find Grand Prix glory after playing these games?
It's definitely going to happen. I mean, people are going to play the game and then they might end up being world champion, but they're not going to be world champion from playing the computer game. I wish it could, but it's not possible.
That's some crazy stuff.
What do you think of that?
Oh, it's wicked. It was really fast.
Yeah, you learned a few things for your driving, so.
Yeah,
So there we have it, 2 satisfied customers who've both assured me they're now going to get out a lot more. This is James Allen handing back to the studio. Michelle. Michelle?
Hold on, just one more lap. Oh no, I've cracked it.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear monkey bike. Happy birthday to you. It's been 40 years since the first monkey bike was launched, so let's celebrate. This is the 1964 version of the CZ100, the first monkey bike to be imported into the UK. It's got a 49cc engine and 5-inch wheels, which makes it really, really woo. Monkey bikes are diddy little street-legal motorcycles. They were originally invented by Honda and were born in the 60s out of the Japanese obsession with miniaturization and portability.
Their purpose is for them to be stored away in small areas like under the stairs. In Japan they're pretty tight on space, so they can put them in the elevator, take them up to the apartment. They're also very useful on the back of boats and camper vans.
The wee monkeys are so teeny that you can even get them into the back of your car. Although original bikes are now fast approaching middle age, these cheeky chimps are now once again the height of fashion, and I just couldn't resist taking one out for some fun. Look at my monkey bike, everyone, look at me! This is the easiest thing to ride. It's like a wee toy. It's really cool. Well, I've been driving this little monkey around the streets of London, and I must admit I really, really like it. I feel really safe on it because it's small and I feel completely in control, although I'm slightly worried that people don't see me because it is very small, but I love it. This is Matt here, he's a photographer. Why did you get yourself a monkey bike?
Oh, and chuck it in hedges when I need to run.
Is that to get pictures or to get away from people that you're taking pictures of?
A bit of both usually.
You're a tall lad. Is it comfortable?
Moved the handlebars far enough forward and my knees fit.
Where do you keep it?
I take it up in the lift because it's small. I might start collecting them.
Expensive hobby. For some, one monkey is just not enough.
At the present moment, I've 8. But at one time, I've had about 15.
I think we're approaching 50 now.
It's small, it's good fun to ride. You go down the road and people are laughing. It's just a real buzz, and it's just brilliant. I just love it.
People just stop in amazement because they can't imagine somebody of my size riding a monkey bike, especially when they're capable of like 50, 60 mile an hour. People just can't believe it when I leave them standing at the lights.
True monkey bikes are made by Honda, and the basic model will cost you about £1,850. These Chinese Jincheng models are based on Honda designs, but will only cost you £950. Standard bikes are semi-automatics and can be ridden with just a car licence. But speed freaks with £12,000 to spare could always go for this specially tuned bike.
It's a very special bike. It's been built by Takigawa parts. This bike now is onto 10-inch wheels opposed to standard 8. Upside-down front forks, special shocks, exhaust, and this bike is capable of 74 miles an hour, and it gets there very fast indeed. It's a fabulous bike to ride and very, very, very exhilarating.
Another great thing about monkey bikes is that if you're out driving your car and happen to find yourself in a bar, instead of drinking water all night, you can dial 1 for a road and they'll come on their bikes to take you home. And here he comes now. Thank you. In fact, I don't actually want to go home. I'm going to go to another bar. Can you take me to another bar, please? Coming up, it's cheerio to our tatty 2CV.
Is there blue smoke? That's bad.
Remember that 2CV we bought at auction for £120? Well, it turned out to be a lemon. Its badly corroded chassis may cost too much to fix, but what's it worth a scrap?
I'm afraid it's not worth anything at all. It actually costs us money to get the vehicle prepared to crush it and then send it away for fragging. In the old days, you would have got some money for it because of the price of steel, plus the fact that there was very little needed to be done to a vehicle once it arrived on site.
But with new European regulations and a fall in the price of steel, recyclers like this one in Crawley have started charging upwards of £20 to take a car off your hands.
We remove all the wheels and tyres from the vehicle, including the spare. We remove the battery, and we also check the vehicle for anything that could cause an explosion when the vehicle was crushed. The vehicle is then taken to one of our specialist decontamination plants. The petrol, the oil, the brake fluid, the water and antifreeze will be separated and sent to certified recyclers.
The car will now be put to one side and picked over for spare parts. This is where recyclers cover their costs, or even make a profit. Crushing our troublesome 2CV may seem a little harsh, but it really would have been a danger on the road, and at least this way, it gets a green funeral. So far, Jeff reckons it's cost him £45 to process the car. What's left of it now will be sent away and turned into new steel.
So we end up with a lump of steel worth about a £5. Bonnet, door, £5–10 each. Battery about a £5. Couple of quid for the headlight. Tyres are going to cost us money to process. So with your 20 quid for the disposal, on this car, we've just about broke even.
And you never know, some of that metal may end up in one of these, the 2CV's spiritual successor, the brand new Citroën C3. It slots into the French firm's range between the Saxo and the Zara, and it will be available with a variety of engines, including the 70 horsepower 1.4 HDI, which offers well over 50 to the gallon. Expect C3 in the showrooms in the spring, when prices will be announced.
It's a fact, new cars have never been harder to steal. Without the correctly encoded key, cars like this simply won't move. So you can be pretty sure they'll remain wherever you leave them. This is certainly bad news for your average car thief, but for some, it just means a change of tactics.
We've found strong evidence that determined criminals aren't just targeting the cars, but the owners themselves.
I was driving in Bourneville, which is a fairly pleasant residential suburb of Birmingham, and I just stopped outside a newsagent's. I was talking to my passenger and I could see that there were 4 or 5 youngsters walking up the pavement, but they seemed to be rather close to the car. The next second the door burst open and the guy shouted, "I've got a gun, everybody out, get out of the car, get out of the car."
Get out of the car!
I was concerned for my female colleague. She was really badly shocked.
This was just one of at least 11 so-called carjackings reported in the West Midlands this year alone. And we've found dozens of other recent cases from right across the country. Earlier this year, the RAC Foundation felt the problem had got so bad that they issued a warning to all motorists in which they described carjacking as the latest trend in car crime.
Carjackers seem to be targeting high-performance vehicles, vehicles which are increasingly very difficult to steal. They have been designed literally so they're quite foolproof against thieves, and because of that they're having to target them when the keys are in the vehicle, and usually the driver as well.
Fortunately, carjacking in this country is still very rare. But that's not the case in the United States, where there are some 49,000 cases of either carjacking or attempted carjacking reported every year. And this footage from South Africa shows the alarming lengths people in that part of the world will go to defend themselves and their car from attack. Of course, devices like that are illegal in this country and not to be recommended. But there are other less extreme things you can do to protect your car from being carjacked, or at the very least, to help you get the car back if it is taken. Cars that require a PIN code as well as a key are nothing new. But there's now a system on the market that takes this idea a step further, specifically to guard against carjacking.
Well, with the Clifford Blackjack, there are two main advantages. The first, obviously, is the cost. It can be fitted to a vehicle for under £200 with no ongoing monitoring fees. The second is the safety issue. You can get away from the car in an instant. There are no switches to switch, no buttons to press. You can physically walk away from the car without having to do anything.
It sounds good, but does it really work? Well, to test the system, we fitted it to this car. And we're going to see just how far I get when I take it for an unauthorised drive. OK, well, it's let me draw away, no problem. So I'm driving along. There's the car itself actually locking its own doors. Now, I'm told that very soon it's going to start making a beeping noise at me, asking me to put my PIN number in, which obviously I don't know. There it goes. Now, God, I don't know, 1, 2, 5. I'm trying every combination, but obviously I've no idea what it is, which I suppose is exactly what a thief would do. Now, I gather I've got another few seconds, and then already the brake lights are actually flashing. That's to stop anybody actually shunting the car. But very soon, there we are, that's the alarm going. I think probably by now most thieves would be heading for the hills. However, the car is still running. So, no, it's gone. Right? It's completely dead. So it went a little bit further, and then it came to control stop. And the manufacturers say that it would never do that at like 17, 18 on a motorway. It might put other lives in danger. It will only do it when it's safe to do so. Devices like this can obviously help to recover cars when they are stolen. But the best way to tackle carjacking is to prevent it from happening in the first place.
The best advice for motorists is to make sure that their car windows are wound up, that their car door is locked, but fundamentally what the thief is actually after is the keys in your car. So get into the habit of keeping your car keys with you at all times, particularly if you're going to shops, and even if someone is sat in the vehicle.
The last thing we want to do on pulling power is to frighten people unnecessarily, and the chances of falling victim to carjacking in this country are still very small. We think with a bit of streetwise common sense and the knowledge that it could happen, will probably ensure that it never does.
Ask yourself, would you pay that? Well, would you?
Smartermotoring.com from Alliance and Leicester.